I'm Will Hunter, also known as Fortunato in the Ren Fair and Pirate world. I've been called the Powder Monkey and occasionally Smee by a certain good captain from Connecticut. I'm here in Wareham, Massachusetts, and I'm going to be sharing with you some of the maritime history of this town, and particularly how it relates to privateering. Well, I'm going to start us here with the maritime history of Wareham in relation to privateering on the Agawam River. The Agawam River feeds out to the ocean. There's a bridge right there to the right side that goes through the section of town known as the Narrows. The Narrows will play into our story later. I'm going to read from the History of Wareham, published in 1867. During the Revolutionary War, the operation of our patriotic citizens were not confined to the land. Captain Bessie went out privateering under a commission from the state in an armed sloop and took one prize. He, together with John Gibbs and some others of his crew, that's the rubbish train headed down to Cape to pick up their trash. Let's start this over. I'm here at the Agawam River. This feeds down through the Narrows on the other side of that auto bridge. And there's a railroad bridge. You can probably hear the train in the distance. The Narrows play into the maritime history of Wareham. But I'm going to start here on the Agawam River because it seems like an appropriate place when discussing the history in relation to privateering. I am reading from the History of Wareham, published in 1867. During the Revolutionary War, the operations of our patriotic citizens were not confined to the land. Captain Bessie went out privateering under the commission from the state in an armed sloop and took one prize. He, together with John Gibbs and some others of his crew, left his vessel at Nantucket and went on board with Captain Dimmick of Falmouth as volunteers and a wood sloop borrowed at that place for the occasion, and was running down towards the enemy vessel, which was shaving mill mounting 6 swivels. Dimmick was ordered to strike. He followed submission, but in running under her stern, he put his bowsprit over the enemy's trafal, and calling upon his men, they sprang upon board, killed the English captain, and took his vessel in a few minutes. Also, a 10-gun sloop named Hancock, owned by John Carver, Nathan Bassett, and others, was fitted out from this place as a privateer. Commanded by Jane Southward, the first cruise went to the West Indies and took 2 prizes. The second cruise then took 2 Grand Bank fishermen, both brigs, and brought them into Wareham. I'll pause from reading for a moment. Those ships would have been brought up the Agawam River here through the Narrows and would have been anchored somewhere along this point or further up closer to Tohonet and the Tremont Nail Company, which is not there or wasn't there at the time. So this is the spot where the privateers would have sailed out of, that 10-gun sloop, and this is the spot where most likely those prizes were brought back into. Now, the History of Wareham, 1867, continues. The enemy took from our citizens the schooner Lion, coming from the West Indies, with a load of salt, the schooner Desire, going to Brazil, and a sloop that was built for a privateer and performed one successful cruise in that capacity, but was after sent to Turk's Island for salt and was taken while returning. In 1848, voted to vendue the colors belonging to the town. The vote is now much to be regretted. I've now walked across over to the Narrows on the other side of the bridge, and we are in Bessie Park, where this sign, one line, the War of 1812 site of historical significance, hints to what our next segment will be. Bessie Park is named after descendants of one of the privateers mentioned in the previous segment. All right, we're here again. We've walked across the Narrows through Bessie Park, and we're on the fishing dock and the boat tie-up here at the Narrows, right on the Agawam River, going out to the ocean. You can bring your private vessel in here, your little fishing boat, your little sailing boat, tie it up in here, and you can walk over to the Cumberland Farms or one of the several fine restaurants like Mamma Mia's here in Wareham, have lunch, and then resupply and set off to sail again here in 2020, right from Bessie Park. We're going to jump forward to 1814 during the War of 1812. And what is going to happen is the town of Falmouth, south of here, is going to get into a scrap with the British patrols that are working this area. The people of Wareham were a bit of anti-war. They were doves. They had good shipping, maritime commerce going on, and a war with England only interrupted their commerce and hurt the town economically. So they were not for the war. However, Falmouth was very pro-war. And they had a bit of a scrap where guns were fired from the point down there on the HMS Nimrod. The captain of the Nimrod returns in kind and shells the town heavily. Then he's given intelligence in this world, this 18th century world of warfare and spies, that the Falmouth shipping, so all of Falmouth's privateers, have sailed up this river that I'm looking down now and have hidden here among the other ships in this safe harbor here at the Narrows. So the captain of the Nimrod is not going to be made a fool of. He anchors the Nimrod at a point south of here, which we'll discuss later, and he sends barges of British Marines up this river, and they land here around the Narrows to begin the raid of the town. Now, being a tricky bastard, the British officer sends them up under a flag of truce. So the townspeople are familiar with this. The British officers oftentimes would bring a ship into harbor under the flag of truce and say, hey, look, we're British officers, we're a British ship, we're at war with you, but we really need to buy some firewood for the stove, we really wood for repair of the boats, and some fresh water. And sometimes they would also then try to exploit the town for resources and other supplies. But this time he came up with hostile intent to attack under a flag of truce. It only goes to show you can't trust the British Navy. Hey, we're here in Bessie Park. I'm continuing the series on the nautical history of Wareham. And we have some fishermen here, or fisher people, nice fisher lady and fisher gentleman. And I've asked them if you mind if I ask you a quick question. Do you know anything about the pirates that sailed right out of here where we're fishing? No. Are you're a local person though, right?
No, I don't live in Wareham.
Oh, you don't live in Wareham.
I just
Yep.
come here to fish.
Come here to fish. Fishing good? All right, well, I'm doing a little documentary on the maritime history and pirates of Wareham. The privateers in the American Revolution sailed right out of this port, right where we're fishing right now. All right, well, thanks for letting me bother you. Good. Anything biting? I heard you had a little bit of a catch there. What did you,
A baby shark.
You caught a baby shark.
140.
And well, you know what we're going to insert at this point of the video when you said baby shark, right? Doot, or how does it go? Folks, you guys have a good one, all right? Good luck. Continuing our maritime history of Wareham as it pertains to privateering, we are here at the Capt John Hendricks Maritime Museum. Captain John Hendricks was a licensed privateer in the American War for Independence. It is confirmed that he took 2 prizes. One of those prizes was taken as a prize of war into Nantes, France, to be recorded and liquidated. And the funds he earned from that prize allowed him to buy or purchase this house, or I'm not sure if it was the land for the house and he built it here, but needless to say, this home was financed on pirate money off of a privateer prize taken in the American War of Independence. Now, you really can't talk about Captain John Hendricks without mentioning his larger contribution. After the war, Captain John Hendricks is going to be the first American to fly the American flag into Japan. He is going to make contact with Japan and initiate trade with that country. And it's going to help Wareham's economy grow and add fame to his name. So that is Captain John Hendricks. The Historical Society here in Wareham does maintain a museum, among other historical houses, here at the Captain John Hendricks house. When COVID and the pandemic situations have settled, I strongly suggest the pirate take a little cruise and explore the Captain John Kendrick Maritime Museum here in Wareham, Massachusetts. I have now proceeded up Main Street about a mile and further down the Agawam River to the Fearing Tavern. It's interesting to note that the Fearing Tavern has the black stripes of a Loyalist tavern on its chimney. Even though Wareham was a patriot town, it's believed that that was a deception to try to keep British troops during the Revolution, the War for Independence, from burning it or attacking it if they were to come here. But we're back to our raid, our British raid of 1814. Those 80 Marines, as far as I can tell from the record, are going to split up. It's a large group of men, and some of them are probably going to come down Main Street, the path I took. But we know some of them went down High Street. Their officers are going to stop at the house of Captain Bump, or Captain Bumpus, depending on what record you look at. And there they're going to threaten to burn the house if they don't receive the town's stores of gunpowder. And it is believed that the town stores of gunpowder was given to the British. The troops continued up to this point, which is about a mile down Main Street, largely where Main Street and what would have been High Street reconnect here, just across from the Tohonet section, and we're almost in West Wareham. The British are going to help themselves into the tavern. They're going to help themselves, being good sailors, to a drink. And then From the fire in the tavern, which the museum is open Saturdays in August when it's not a pandemic, which I could show you the actual fireplace where I believe they helped themselves to a bit of a firebrand. They lit a piece of tinder or something, a small torch that they could carry fire. And it's not foreshadowing, or it's a bit of foreshadowing of what's going to happen at our next location. Okay, I've walked down the road from the tavern, pretty much where that British officer carrying that torch or firebrand would have walked. Comes down to a mill pond, and over where the water is on the other side of the bridge is the Agawam River, where Mr. Fearing was building a boat. It was actually completely built and ready to launch. They are going to set that on fire. Prior to marching up here, back at the Narrows, they are going to set fire to majority of the boats in the harbor, including the privateers from Falmouth, but also most of the Wareham shipping. They are going to burn several boats that were under construction, accusing them being built for privateering. And guess what? They probably were right. I did notice there's some empty alcohol bottles down here. I believe my good friend Captain Jack must have visited what is now known as the Tremont Nail Factory site at one time, because all the bottles of alcohol seem to be empty. So, in 1814, Tremont Nail would not have been here. There would have been another mill built on this site. I estimate right where I'm holding my camera now, using the water power that goes under near that white fence and comes out here into the mill pond. It was a cotton fulling mill. It was rather new. It was an economic venture to try to bring business and income to Wareham. The British are going to fire a convex rocket into the mill. And needless to say, it was full of cotton cloth, because that's what a fulling mill does. It pounds out woven cotton cloth to make it fuller. The building is going to burn. Now, my friend and historian, Mr. Christopher Garcia, down at the Virginia War Museum, estimates that this may be the first documented use of a convex rocket in land combat in North America. The British officers quite satisfied with themselves, knowing that they had set fire to the shipping down by the Narrows, Wareham shipping, and the Falmouth boats they had used for an excuse to attack the town, are now going to make their way happily back down the Narrows. Let this sink in and reiterate the point that these British bastards marched down through the town, up here to the tavern, helped themselves to beverages, and then lit a torch from this man's fire, and then walked down that street and across to the side of the river where he has newly built a boat for sale and sets it on fire. Just to add insult to injury, they lit the fire from his own hearth to burn his boat. The British officers are bastards. On Wareham in 1814 as a Shakespearean drama, a tragedy, a 5-act tragedy. The third and climactic act is after landing here, marching up, capturing the town stores. They burn Captain Fearing's own ships from the fire from his hearth. I'm now back at the Narrows for the third act in this drama, because the British are going to bring their barges and their troops back down, preparing to head back down the river out to the HMS Nimrod with their plunder of black powder from the town stores and having looted and burnt the shipping of the town. But Captain Fearing is going to organize the town. They are going to put out fires on many of the ships down here near the Narrows while the troops have marched up High Street to Fearing's Tavern to burn the factory and the shipping up there. And across here from the Narrows restaurant, the red restaurant on the other side, Captain Fearing and his men are going to set the town's guns, waiting for the British barges to pass through this narrow pass. But again, the British officers are bastards. And when they marched to Captain Bump's house up on High Street, the nicer section of town, or one of the nicer sections of town, they took 12 captives, 12 prominent citizens of the town they held hostage, and then loaded them on the barge upriver. And those hostages are on those barges as a wind. The prevailing wind, which is to our back now, pushed those British barges to that side of the river, mere yards from the muzzles of the town's guns under the command of Captain Fearing. And I can just see Captain Fearing there, waiting, trying to decide to risk the life of those fellow citizens to take that point-blank shot on those hostile British barges. But from this shore, in all the prominent houses here, the people of the town pleaded and begged with Captain Fearing not to open fire to save the lives of those hostages. And the British continued down the river. The Agawam River past what is now Swift Beach, past that inlet and past that point, to here where it meets the ocean at Cremicet Point. Cremicet Point is just on the other side of this little nautical railroad boat launch. You can see the jetty there of Cremicet Point. Cremicet Point has fancy houses built there now that have signs up to prevent pirates and the such from going in. But that doesn't matter because Cremicet Point is just where the HMS Nimrod was anchored, right on the other side of that jetty. What happened here along this little sandy stretch of beach in our fifth and final act of this tragedy is the barges are going to stop and drop those hostages off on what is a largely unoccupied neck pointed out into the water. Then they're triumphantly going to fire one of their rockets out over to the HMS Nimrod. They're going to attach a line and use that line to haul their barges and their ill-gotten, stolen gunpowder, black powder, and other goods out to their ship and to sail away. And that ends the 1814 raid on Wareham. Well, we concluded our story of the raid on Wareham, a tragedy. A tragedy because the town of Wareham had struck its colors and had no interest in being part of the war. Yet it was raided and had so much of its resources and shipping burnt. But this is a video about the maritime history of Wareham in relation to privateering, not just a video about the raid of 1814. So to conclude, I've come down here to lovely Onset Beach, or the lovely Onset section of the town, which is full of history. But I came down here for a particular, to share and close with this. From the history of Wareham in 1867. The land southerly of Agawam is indented with many coves, forming numerous peninsulas or necks, as they are here called. There are so numerous islands. You can see some of those islands out in front of us. Among them, wickets named for the Indian who owned it, Onset or Oset, which was credulously believed money was buried, and where lights were formerly seen on stormy nights. And even the money chest has been seen by curious searchers. So I'm going to leave you here with a little bit, a tale of treasure. In 1867, they're talking about one of these islands having treasure on it. And nothing, maybe more than rum and a good woman, excites a pirate as much as treasure. So, I will end there, the maritime history of Wareham, with a focus on pirates and privateering, with a bit of a treasure tale from a book in 1867. If you're out there in the pirate world, I suggest come visit Wareham, visit our beautiful beaches, including the beaches here at Onset, which you're only seeing a bit of, the John Kendrick Museum, the Fearing Tavern Museum, and visit our fine restaurants. And now it's time to end. I want to say thank you to my good friend Captain Jack, the lovely lady Molly Sparrow, for their making the suggestion I do this video, and a shout out to my friend Chris Garcia with some of the history, some of the research on what happened with Falmouth that spurred this raid. Now I have to get out of here because this pirate doesn't want to pay a parking ticket.